When I was sorting through an old dresser, I found a hidden mortgage agreement for a house I knew nothing about. My husband had signed it 6 months ago. When I went to the address, I discovered who was living in that house, and the ground fell out from under me. It started as nothing more than spring cleaning, the kind of chore you put off until guilt finally outweighs the dust. Our old oak dresser had been sitting in the corner of the guest room for years, stacked with mismatched linens and sweaters I hadn't worn since college. I decided it was time to empty it out. I wanted to donate the dresser, maybe free some space before our daughter came to stay for a week. The drawers creaked as I pulled them open, releasing a faint smell of cedar and mothballs. Old scarves, tangled jewelry chains, a yellowed envelope of photographs from a trip to Florida in the 90s. Nostalgia layered in dust. The bottom drawer stuck. I tugged harder, rattling the wood until it gave way with a sudden jolt. Inside was a mess of papers, old bills, a cracked leather wallet, faded receipts. I began sorting them absent-mindedly, but my hands froze when I saw a crisp folder wedged against the back. It wasn't old. It was new. The folder bore the seal of a bank. My eyes scanned the words in disbelief. Mortgage agreement. The date leapt out. 6 months ago. The borrower, Richard Carter. My husband. For a moment, the room tilted. Richard had never mentioned a mortgage. Our own house was long paid off, and we hadn't talked about buying property. Yet here it was, his signature in neat, unmistakable strokes across the bottom. I sank onto the floor, the papers trembling in my hands. Loan amount? Enormous. Payment schedule? Active. And the address listed wasn't ours. It was somewhere across town, in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. My mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe it was for work, an investment, a project with his firm. But if it was innocent, why hide it in the bottom of an old dresser? Why not tell me? I pulled out my phone, ready to call him. My thumb hovered over his number, then stopped. What would I even say? I was snooping through furniture and found a mortgage you never told me about. Instead, I folded the papers back into the folder and tucked it under my arm. My reflection in the dresser's mirror startled me. Pale face, wide eyes, lips pressed thin. A woman looking at her own life like it no longer fit. For years, I had trusted Richard implicitly. We built a home, raised our daughter, shared ordinary days that blurred into decades. But this folder felt like a crack in the foundation, a fissure that threatened to split everything apart. I sat on the floor until the light outside shifted from gold to gray, the house silent except for the ticking clock in the hallway. The folder lay heavy in my lap, as if it carried not just papers, but an answer I wasn't sure I wanted. Finally, I whispered into the empty room, "What have you done, Richard?" And I knew, with chilling certainty, that this wasn't clutter I could just sweep away. The next morning I woke with the uneasy feeling still clinging to me, like a bad dream that had followed me into daylight. The folder lay on my nightstand where I'd left it, its neat edges almost taunting me. Richard was already gone, off to work before sunrise as usual. I slid the papers out again, this time reading every line carefully. Loan balance, interest rate, monthly payments. A figure that made my stomach tighten. $3,000, drafted automatically each month. From an account I didn't recognize. Richard and I had always shared finances. At least I believed we did. We sat at the kitchen table each January, mapping out budgets, agreeing on savings. Or maybe I had simply nodded along while he handled the details. Suddenly, I realized how much of our financial life I had taken on faith. And then, the address. I whispered it aloud, testing how the street name felt in my mouth. Willow Creek Lane. I didn't know it, but it sounded pleasant, suburban. Too pleasant. I pulled my laptop closer and typed the address into the search bar. Within seconds, an image appeared. A 2-story brick house with shutters the color of sage, a manicured lawn, a swing set in the backyard, just visible beyond the hedge. My pulse quickened. This wasn't an office space or some sterile rental. It was a home. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred, staring at the windows as if I could catch sight of who lived there. My rational mind screamed that there could be a simple explanation. Maybe Richard had invested in property for retirement. Maybe he co-signed for someone. But the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. Why hide it? Why tuck the papers away in an old dresser instead of a safe or the filing cabinet in his study? That evening, when Richard came home, I almost asked him. The words pressed against the back of my throat during dinner as he casually talked about traffic and a new project at work. I studied his face, searching for cracks. Did his eyes flicker when I mentioned bills? Did he avoid my gaze more than usual? But I stayed silent. I cut my chicken, nodded, and smiled at the right moments. All the while, my mind whispered, "He's lying to you." After he fell asleep on the couch, I returned to the folder, fingers tracing his signature again and again. The date confirmed it. He had signed 6 months ago. 6 months of payments. 6 months of secrets. I wrote the address on a slip of paper and tucked it into my purse. I didn't know what I would find, but I knew I had to see it for myself. As I turned out the lights and climbed into bed, Richard stirred slightly, mumbling something incoherent. I lay beside him in the dark, wide awake, rehearsing my plan. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would go to Willow Creek Lane. And I prayed I was wrong about what I would find there. By the next evening, the slip of paper in my purse felt like it was burning a hole straight through the lining. I had spent the entire day at work unable to focus, glancing at the clock, rehearsing conversations in my head. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe all I needed to do was ask Richard and he would explain everything. So after dinner, when the silence stretched heavy between us, I finally said it. "Richard, I found something yesterday. In the dresser." He looked up from his phone, eyebrows knit together. "What kind of something?" I drew a breath. "A mortgage agreement. For a house on Willow Creek Lane." For a second, just a flicker, his eyes widened. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, that. God, you scared me. I thought you found something serious." "Serious?" My voice caught. "You signed a mortgage for a house I've never heard of. How is that not serious?" He waved his hand dismissively, the way he did when talking to interns at his office. "It's nothing for you to worry about. It's related to a business arrangement, temporary paperwork. A client needed a guarantor for financing a business arrangement." The words sat like stones in my stomach. "Then why are the payments coming out of your account?" "Our account?" "Because it was easier that way." His tone sharpened, irritation creeping in. "You know how complicated banks can be. Look, it's under control. You don't need to stress yourself." I stared at him, my fork idle on the plate. "Why didn't you tell me?" Richard leaned back, rubbing his temples as if I were the one exhausting him. "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. With suspicion. With drama. I was trying to spare us both. The headache anger rose hot in my chest, but underneath it was fear. Fear that he was lying so smoothly, so effortlessly, as if he had rehearsed. "Richard," I said carefully, "I want the truth. All of it. Who lives in that house?" He slammed his fork onto the table, the clatter startling me. "For God's sake, Claire! Nobody you need to know. Stop digging into things you don't understand." His voice echoed in the dining room. Then, softer, he added, "Trust me." "Please." I watched him gather his plate and retreat to the kitchen, leaving me in silence. The plea in his last words might have swayed me once. But now, all I could hear was the lie threaded through every syllable. Trust was exactly what he no longer had. I barely slept that night. Richard's words circled endlessly in my head, each excuse more hollow the longer I turned it over. Business arrangement, temporary paperwork. Spare us both the headache, lies dressed as reassurances. By morning, I had made up my mind. I couldn't keep living in the haze of half-truths. I needed to see the house with my own eyes. I waited until Richard left for work, kissed him goodbye like always, heart pounding, as if I were the one keeping a secret. The moment his car turned the corner, I grabbed my keys and the slip of paper with the address. The drive across town took 30 minutes, though it felt both endless and impossibly fast. My palms slicked the steering wheel. With every mile, the voice in my head argued, "This is crazy. What if it really is a business deal? What if you're inventing betrayal where none exists?" But beneath those doubts was a deeper certainty. I already knew. The GPS announced the turn before I realized I was there. Willow Creek Lane. A quiet neighborhood of trimmed lawns and pastel shutters, the kind of place where children ride bikes after school and neighbors wave from porches. Too normal, too perfect. Then I saw it. Number 1142. The same brick facade I'd glimpsed on the screen, only now alive with detail. The wreath on the door, a flower bed carefully maintained, a tricycle tipped against the steps. This wasn't an empty investment property. This was a home. I parked half a block away, heart slamming so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. My eyes fixed on the front door, daring it to open. The wind rustled the leaves, the street eerily still. I sat frozen, half hoping no one would appear, half dreading exactly what I might see. And then the door opened. A woman stepped out, sunlight catching on her blonde hair. She looked younger than me, maybe early 30s, with an ease in her posture that screamed belonging. She balanced a toddler on her hip, the child's laughter carrying down the quiet street. My breath caught. The little boy reached for a toy car on the porch, and she bent to pick it up, smiling. Every movement so domestic, so practiced, as though this had been her life for years. Then from the side gate, a figure appeared. Tall, familiar in a way that made my vision tunnel. Richard. He leaned down and kissed the woman's cheek, his hand brushing hers with casual intimacy. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles whitened. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me, though I was still sitting in my car. This was no business arrangement. It was my husband's other life. I don't remember starting the engine. One moment I was staring at Richard kissing her cheek. The next my car was gliding down the street, each house a blur. My vision tunneled, my chest tightening until I could barely breathe. I pulled over 2 blocks away, fumbling for air, for sense, for anything solid to cling to. The world outside looked the same. Suburban trees, kids on bikes, a mailman carrying his bag. But inside me, everything had splintered. Richard wasn't just unfaithful, he was living a second life, a second family. And somehow, he had managed to keep it hidden from me for 6 months. Maybe longer. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, trying to stop the spinning. Memories assaulted me, scenes from our marriage replayed with a new, sinister script. Business trips that ran longer than expected, late nights at the office, the weekends he insisted on golf with the guys. I had believed all of it. Tears blurred my vision, but underneath them was rage. Rage at him for deceiving me, rage at myself for being so trusting, so blind. I thought of the toddler in her arms, my stomach twisted. Was he Richard's son? He looked too much like him. Dark eyes, the same stubborn chin. My heart shattered in a way I hadn't thought possible. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over Richard's number. What would I say? That I had seen everything? That his lies were no longer safe? But then I pictured his face at dinner, the practiced way he'd brushed me off, and I knew he would deny it. He would twist it, make me doubt my own eyes. So I shoved the phone back into my purse and started the car again. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had wiped away the tears. I walked into the house, the same house I had tended for 20 years, and everything felt foreign. The framed photos on the wall, the kitchen we remodeled together, the couch where we had shared movies, it all mocked me now. Richard arrived home late that night. He smelled of cologne, his tie loosened. He kissed my cheek casually, as though nothing in the world had shifted. I excused myself quickly, afraid my voice would betray me. In the bathroom, I locked the door and stared at my reflection. hollow eyes, trembling lips. This was the moment I realized my life had broken open, and nothing would ever fit back the way it had. But even through the wreckage, one thought pulsed steady. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof. Because when the confrontation came, and I knew it would, I couldn't afford to be dismissed again. The next morning, the house felt suffocating. Every chair, every photo, every sound of Richard moving in the kitchen carried a different weight. I watched him butter his toast and sip his coffee as if he weren't living two lives. His ease only sharpened the knife twisting in my chest. When he left for work, I grabbed my coat and keys. There was only one person I trusted enough to tell. Emily, my oldest friend. Her cafe was always half busy on weekday mornings, a place that smelled of cinnamon and roasted beans. Emily took one look at me as I walked in and dropped the dish towel in her hands. "What's wrong?" she whispered, pulling me toward a corner booth. I tried to start, but the words tangled. Finally, I shoved the folded mortgage papers across the table. "I found this." Her eyes scanned the document, eyebrows shooting up. "Claire, this is a house. He bought a house? 6 months ago. Without telling me." My voice cracked. "And yesterday, I went there." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. What did you see?" I told her everything. The blonde woman, the child, Richard kissing her as if he belonged there. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking too hard to hold the coffee cup. Emily reached across the table, gripping my fingers. "Listen to me. You're not crazy. He's been lying to you. But if you want to confront him, you need more than what you saw. You need proof. Paper, photos, something he can't explain away." I nodded, throat tight. The rational part of me knew she was right. Richard was skilled at deflecting, at twisting. I needed evidence so airtight even he couldn't wriggle free. "Start with the bank records," Emily said. "See what accounts he's using. And Claire, don't let him see you unravel. Let him think you're still in the dark." Her advice steadied me, gave me a plan. For weeks I had lived on autopilot, trusting Richard, moving through routines. Now I felt a grim clarity. When I got home, Richard was sprawled on the couch watching a game. He looked up with a smile that once warmed me but now felt like a mask. "Good day?" he asked. "Fine," I said evenly, dropping my keys in the bowl. "Yours?" "Busy," he replied, attention already sliding back to the TV. I turned away before my face betrayed me. In my purse, the mortgage papers crinkled softly, a reminder of what I knew and what I still had to prove. For the first time since finding that folder, I felt something other than grief or rage. I felt ready. That night, after Richard had gone to bed, I sat in the glow of my laptop at the kitchen table. My hands trembled as I logged into our online banking account, the one we had shared for years. On the surface, everything looked normal. Our mortgage, utilities, grocery charges, the usual. But then I noticed a link I had never clicked before. External transfers. My pulse quickened as I opened it. There it was, regular transfers of $3,000 each month to an account I didn't recognize. The dates matched perfectly with the mortgage schedule. My chest tightened. He hadn't even tried to hide it very well. I printed the records, sliding the pages into a manila folder. Proof. But I wasn't finished. I clicked through Richard's emails. He wasn't careless. His inbox was pristine, each folder neat. Still, tucked in the receipts folder was a confirmation from an insurance company. My eyes caught the line that made me gasp. Beneficiary. Anna Whitmore. Not me. Not our daughter. A different woman entirely. Anna. Was that her name? I scribbled it down, the letters shaky in my notebook. My stomach churned as I kept digging. A credit card statement revealed charges at a toy store across town, a pediatric clinic, even a women's boutique. All recent. All things that had no place in our life together. Each click was like a knife, carving away the life I thought I knew. Richard wasn't just having an affair. He was supporting them, building a parallel existence with money we had earned together. I shut the laptop when I heard him stir upstairs. My heart hammered, terrified he'd walk in and catch me. But the house stayed quiet, and soon his soft snoring drifted through the walls. I pressed my hands against the folder of printed records. For the first time, I wasn't just suspicious. I had evidence. The next morning at breakfast, Richard slid scrambled eggs onto my plate like always. "Got a busy day ahead," he said, sipping his coffee. His voice was steady, casual, as if he weren't living two lives. I forced a smile, my secrets tucked neatly under the table. "Same here." He kissed the top of my head before leaving, a gesture that once comforted me but now felt like theater. As the door closed, I exhaled, clutching the folder. The man across the table was a stranger, and I had the proof in black and white. But what I didn't yet know was how to use it, whether to confront, to leave, or to burn down everything we had built. All I knew was that pretending wasn't an option anymore. By the time I slid into the corner booth of Emily's cafe again, my manila folder was so full of papers it barely closed. I placed it on the table between us like contraband. Emily opened it and leafed through the pages, her eyes widening as she read. Bank transfers, credit card statements, the insurance form. Each new sheet made her frown deepen. "Claire," she whispered, "this isn't just an affair. He's funding a whole other family." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know. And he's smart about it. Accounts I didn't know existed, receipts hidden in folders. But he slipped up. I found enough to prove it." Emily tapped the insurance form. "This, naming her as beneficiary? That's beyond betrayal. That's cutting you out of your own life." The words stung because they were true. "So what do I do?" I asked, voice trembling. "Do I confront him? Walk out? Call a lawyer? I don't even know where to start." Emily leaned forward, lowering her voice. "First, protect yourself. Don't show your cards yet. If he realizes you know, he'll move fast, hide money, shift accounts, maybe even try to turn it against you. You need to be ahead of him." Her calmness steadied me. "So, I keep pretending?" "For now." She squeezed my hand. "But you plan. Quietly. Find out exactly how deep this goes. And Claire, don't do it alone. Talk to a lawyer before you talk to him." I exhaled shakily. The idea of legal action felt like admitting my marriage was already over. But wasn't it? Hadn't Richard ended it the moment he signed that mortgage behind my back? Emily must have read the conflict on my face. "You deserve the truth. You deserve safety. And if he's willing to cut you out of your own marriage, you need to make sure he can't cut you out of your own future." I nodded slowly, the words searing into me. Safety. Future. Two things I no longer had with Richard. By the time I left the cafe, the folder pressed against my ribs like armor. I felt a flicker of resolve. I couldn't undo what Richard had done, but I could decide what came next. And for the first time since finding that folder in the dresser, I felt a direction forming. Not survival in silence, but strategy. The following week, I lived two lives. By day, I played the part of the dutiful wife, smiling at Richard across the dinner table, asking about his meetings, folding his shirts. By night, I pored over documents, cross-checking transfers, cataloging receipts, building a case as carefully as he had built his lie. I thought I had steeled myself for anything, but nothing prepared me for what I found tucked into the back of his desk drawer late one evening. It was a birthday card, pink, with glittery balloons. Inside, in crayon, a child's handwriting spelled out, "Happy Birthday, Daddy." The date was from just last month, and there was a photo tucked inside. Richard holding the little boy I had seen at the house, both smiling at the camera like it was the most natural thing in the world. His other family wasn't just a secret, it was celebrated. My chest clenched so hard I had to sit down. I felt like I was suffocating inside my own home, surrounded by furniture and memories that now felt counterfeit. When Richard came home later that night, I studied him in a new, merciless light. He set his briefcase down, kissed my cheek, and asked if there was wine. As if nothing were wrong. As if he weren't living two marriages. I managed a brittle smile, poured the wine, and listened to him complain about traffic. But in my mind, the scales tipped. I could no longer pretend this was salvageable. The mortgage, the insurance, the receipts, those were numbers. But the photo? That was flesh and blood, a child calling him daddy. The next morning, I called Emily. My voice shook, but my words were clear. It's time. You're ready to confront him? She asked. Yes, I have the folder. I have everything. He won't be able to lie his way out this time. There was a pause, then Emily's steady voice. Then don't hold back. Show him you know it all. End it on your terms, not his. I hung up, staring at the manila folder spread across my kitchen table. The mortgage, the transfers, the insurance, the card, the photo. Every lie laid bare in ink and image. For weeks, Richard had held the power by keeping me in the dark. But now I had the light, and I intended to use it. I chose a Thursday night. Richard always came home tired and hungry, expecting dinner to be on the table. I set everything out as usual: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, his favorite bottle of red. But this time, there was something extra waiting for him. The manila folder lay neatly in the center of the table, its edges squared, its weight unmistakable. When Richard walked in, loosening his tie, he paused. His eyes flicked from the food to the folder. His smile faltered. "What's this?" he asked, his tone casual but his jaw tightening. "Sit down," I said evenly. My own voice surprised me. Calm, almost cold. He lowered himself into the chair, eyes never leaving mine. I opened the folder and began sliding the papers across the table one by one. The mortgage agreement, the transfer records, the insurance policy with Anna Whitmore's name. Each landed between us like a hammer strike. "Claire," he started, but I cut him off. "Don't. Just look." I laid down the final pieces. The birthday card, the photo of him with the little boy. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. This is who you are now. A man with two families, two lives, and nothing but lies in between, his face drained of color. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then he pushed back in his chair, exhaling heavily. "It's not what you think." A bitter laugh burst out of me. "Not what I think?" "Richard, I drove to the house. I saw her. I saw you. Don't insult me with more lies." He rubbed his temples as if I were giving him a headache. "I never meant for you to find out this way. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" My voice rose. "By draining our money? By replacing me in an insurance policy? By raising another child while pretending to love me?" His eyes hardened, the mask slipping. "You don't understand. Anna needed me. The boy needed me. And I—" He stopped, then looked at me with something close to contempt. "You were comfortable. You didn't question anything. I thought you'd never notice there it was. The truth, raw and cutting." I gathered the papers back into the folder, snapped it shut, and stood. My hands were steady now. I noticed Richard. And now I'm done. His mouth opened as if to protest, but I didn't wait. I carried the folder with me, the evidence of his betrayal clutched tight. At the doorway, I turned once more. "You can live your second life, but it won't be with me." And then I left him there, alone, surrounded by the wreckage he had built. It's been 3 months since that night. 3 months since I left the house that no longer felt like home. The man who no longer felt like mine. I'm living in a small apartment now, the kind with mismatched furniture and a view of the river. It isn't grand, but it's mine. Every lamp, every dish, every photo on the wall belongs only to me. No hidden contracts, no secret addresses. Some days are harder than others. I still wake up expecting to hear Richard's keys jangling by the door, his voice calling from the kitchen. But then I remember, and the ache gives way to something stronger. Relief. Emily has been my anchor, helping me meet with a lawyer, sorting through what I'm owed. The process is slow, but for once, I don't feel powerless. I hold the folder, the one I once feared, like a shield. It is no longer the weight of betrayal, but the proof of my survival. Sometimes I think about the woman on Willow Creek Lane. Anna. The child calling him daddy. Do I hate her? Strangely, no. She was deceived too, I suspect. Maybe not as fully, maybe she chose not to see the cracks, but she is also trapped in his lies. The boy is innocent. None of this is his fault. Richard tried to build a world with two centers, and in the end, both collapsed. That was his doing, not mine. What I know now is this: trust should never be blind. Love should never mean erasing yourself. I spent years keeping our home spotless, our routines steady, thinking that was enough. But a marriage built on silence and secrets will always crumble. Tonight, I sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the lights ripple on the water. The air smells of rain, and for the first time in a long while, I feel steady. The earth beneath me is mine again, not shifting, not borrowed, not false. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this: it will be written by my own hand. And when I finally close my eyes to sleep, I do so with the peace that comes from truth, no matter how much it hurt to find it.